Show presents Scratch a Track,
the podcast where we debate which track to scratch off some of the most known and unknown albums of all time.
We live in an era of singles.
This is an album.
People no longer listen to an album for the work it truly is.
It kind of defines a band.
It's just not something that people relate to nowadays.
We've all gotten the dreaded.
It started out as a game.
Which track on the album would you scratch out if you had to? Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Scratch a Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grimm Show. I'm the Dude.
And I'm Grimm. And today we are going to talk about a little album called Harvest by Neil Young.
Oh, Neil Young. Very excited for this one. But before we get started, everyone, we just want to send a friendly reminder to like, to subscribe, to comment, tell your friends, tell everyone about this podcast because we think people should know. So... if you guys haven't been here before or you're new to this, basically we take albums, some of them classics, some of them more recent, and we pick songs that we would scratch off. Now, it's not necessarily the song that we don't like or we think isn't worthy of being on the album, because some of these albums are pretty amazing. Wouldn't you say, Grimm?
Yeah, I would. But if you go back to the times of CD, or in this case, this is a vinyl record for those who don't know, inevitably, one of these lovely songs would get some sort of a scratch in it. And, you know, a lot of times you can't control what that is. But I guess the thought was, what if you could?
Yes.
So
what if you could go back to the future and you could screw
right? Dude, his whole family is being erased. But
exactly.
Anyways, the point is it's a game. Dude and I started playing it years ago as a result of some of our favorite CDs being scratched. So granted, this probably won't happen in today's world with all your music being served up digitally, but those who remember what the pre 100% digital age was like could appreciate it.
Exactly. And now that vinyls are really, I mean, they've been making, I guess you could say, a comeback for many years now. It may be something that people actually do have to deal with from time to time. So,
yeah. Yep.
But anyways, today, Neil Young Harvest. And so you have this on vinyl. Is this an original version that you have, or is it a,
yes,
I guess,
this is not a new one. So this is one, I mean, that came to me via Jim Radowski, my dad. And I remember listening to this album fairly regularly throughout my upbringing and formative years. And I was always a big fan of it. And I mean, my dad being a Neil Young fan anyways, you knew some of his more famous songs, but I think he had two of his albums on vinyl that we would listen to after the Gold Rush and Harvest.
After the Gold Rush is great too. Yeah,
it is. And oddly enough, I didn't realize that predated Harvest until doing some of the research on this. That really kind of took me by surprise. I don't know why, but I guess looking back on it, it makes sense, because I think maybe you could argue there was a little more of consistency throughout after the Gold Rush, and I feel like he kind of did a little bit of more experimentation on this album. I guess I'd never heard him use a symphony.
Yeah, definitely not.
And not even just strings, like the London Symphony Orchestra. I can't imagine how much that cost.
Oh, yeah, that must have been crazy, dude. Must have been crazy. I mean, man, that's why he probably only used it for 2 songs, right?
Yeah, sure.
All they had in the budget for.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, because when I listened to After the Gold Rush, and like you, I was surprised as well. I actually find, and maybe I need to listen to it more, that the sound quality, I feel like, in After the Gold Rush, the production is actually, I find much cleaner and crisper. Whereas I feel like Harvest is a little more raw, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Some of it was done some of it was done in the studio. Other stuff was done kind of at his ranch, and I think they mixed and they had speakers and stuff in like his barn. And
yeah,
they
we'll
did
get
some
into
really,
that.
Really interesting things.
That would have been a cool thing to have been there for.
Definitely, definitely. But there are a lot of this, and we talked a little bit about this. This album does kind of go into a couple different places. It is acoustic folky. There's a couple of good rock songs on the album, and then there's a few songs that do incorporate the London Symphony Orchestra that have a real deep, I guess, epic sound. But yeah, this was his fourth album, and he had kind of been. Before he did this, he'd kind of been a wanderer. He was trying to do it on his own. Yeah, sure. And Crazy Horse. And then he was even with Crosby, Stills and Nash for a bit. And but then he started doing kind of his own stuff. And I guess this is his fourth studio album as Neil Young.
Yeah, and I didn't realize one of his big forays into the music world was with the Buffalo Springfield.
That's right. For what it's worth. I mean.
Well, yeah, but I think the song that he sings on, where his voice is most prominent, that really brought that to my attention. It was, if you ever listen to a song called "Mr. Soul" by them, awesome song, and I mean, you can hear his characteristic guitar solos that are, let's just say, there's a lot of feeling in them.
Dude, they're so interesting, aren't they? Like some of them,
yes,
and we'll get into it on some of the songs on this album. But some of them, they're just a little strange. They're kind of like, it's not like Hendrix would do a solo or Townsend or any of those guys.
I feel like he was always more of a songwriter as opposed to like a totally amazing, like those guys where they just they really can go all over the place. Right. But there's always a lot of feeling in those solos, regardless of that.
I got a feeling. Well, one of the things he struggled with early on, and of course now you look back on it, it's such a unique characteristic, is the sound of his voice.
Yeah, sure.
And he didn't have, it took him a while to get confidence in his singing voice and kind of performing, just because it was very different. But I think that's where an artist like Bob Dylan comes in, where you don't have to have this, deep or soulful or kind of smooth, pretty voice. And I think that probably helped him a lot and was a big influence on him.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know, in talking about his voice, which is a very unique voice, and I feel like it's kind of a divisive point for a lot of listeners, because I feel like regardless of the fact that he's an awesome songwriter, I think his voice is either it's like a you love it or hate it kind of thing,
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And it'll
either
just
love
turn
him
people
or
off.
you hate him,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, but I like it. And if you've ever seen some clips from Saturday Night Live, Jimmy Fallon does an awesome rendition of Neil Young.
No way.
And he actually does a really funny one where he plays a song like in a style that sounds like a Neil Young song, but he sings the lyrics to, I believe it was Willow Smith's song, Whip My Hair Back and Forth. A real deep song, but I mean, the dichotomy of those two things together is funny, and it's worth watching for sure.
That's pretty great. I'll have to definitely YouTube that later.
Yeah, it is good.
Well, with this album, it actually, we talked about a little bit about the London Symphony Orchestra, but dude, Crosby, Stills and Nash sing on it.
James Taylor,
Linda Ronstadt, James Taylor. A lot of it background vocals and whatnot, but
and I like the story of that is that they came to the studio he was working with, and like they all sat on this couch and did the background vocals to that.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, so the story kind of behind that was it was in Nashville, and Neil Young was playing the Johnny Cash show, And there was a guy, the Elliot Mazer. He had opened a studio called Quadraphonic Sound Studios and basically invited him back to the studio and just wanted to show him the studio and basically convince him to record his next album there. Yeah. And it worked, because I think after a few hours in that evening, Neil Young was basically like, well, I have some songs that I've been working on. And, if you can find me a drummer, a bass player and a pedal steel guitarist, we can do this. And dude, I guess they found, so Tim Drummond played bass on a few of the songs.
This is my favorite.
They found him walking down the street. Yeah. But I guess in Nashville, like, that's the thing, because there's just musicians everywhere. Like, that's, especially back then, like, that's just like a thing, man.
That is not a completely unique story. I heard a story of there's a German group called Can. I don't know if you know about them, but
yeah, I've heard of them.
Apparently they were on their way to their first gig, and they had no singer. And the guy who would become their singer, they saw him busking on the street, and it was like, we're kind of like, hey man, you want to play with our band? And they just kind of turned up, and that was it.
Dude, that's great, man.
Yeah. So Tim Drummond, also just walking down the street.
Just walking
but
down the street.
I like the name that he gave this kind of group of, I mean, these guys are kind of like Nashville musicians, I would say.
The country musicians,
like,
studio musicians.
Hired guns, like real good.
Yeah.
The Stray
really
Gators.
Good. The Stray Gators.
I do like cool. That.
Yeah. Well, as much as it's interesting, because as much as when this album came out, the critics were definitely kind of split on it. Some people liked it, but a lot of people, I mean, I think even Rolling Stone wrote kind of a pretty harsh review of it. It was actually the top selling album of 1972 in the United States. And Old Man got up to number 31 on the charts, and Heart of Gold got up to number 1 on the charts.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good.
And speaking of Old Man, I'm pretty sure that aside from the backing vocal, James Taylor is actually the guy playing. He's the banjo player on that.
Oh, really?
Young,
okay.
Yeah, Young had one of these things. I think now people call them like a banjitar, but it's basically like a banjo, but it's a 6-string guitar. So for those of us who are more familiar with like the guitar fingerings and stuff,
right.
But it's in a like drum like a banjo is, so you still get the banjo sound, but without necessarily learning a completely new instrument.
That's cool. Interesting. Well, and that is one thing. I mean, we'll get to the songs. That is one of the things in that song that really stands out for me, and that I really like about it.
That and the pedal steel.
The pedal steel, of course. Yeah,
that stands out throughout the album. And I mean, Ben Keith is the guy, did such an excellent job with that instrument. I mean, really good. And I think that that Jack Nietzsche should also get a big mention on this, because he did the orchestration and arrangements for the songs where they used the orchestra, and was the primary pianist on the album too.
Oh wow, okay, that's cool.
I mean, based on the members of the band being all dudes, I think there was a lot of pianists, but he's the primary one.
Yeah. Well, this, it was recorded differently. One was in the Quadraphonics Sound Studio in Nashville. Some songs were there. Some tracks were laid down there. Also, a lot of it was recorded in Neil Young's ranch.
Yep.
Where he lived, and they like set up PA speakers like in the barn rather than having the musicians wear headphones and stuff. And there was, and I'm sure you could speak to this a little bit from a recording perspective. Dude. There was also a lot of leakage in the microphones,
Well, yeah, because I mean,
and whatnot.
It would be bad enough with leakage. Just let me show you this picture here, Duder, because I happen to have the vinyl, and you can't. I didn't find a lot of stuff online, but if you can see this picture on the back of the LP, you can see them in the barn set up in the way that they would have recorded the album, and you'll see studio monitors kind of on the bottom. Now look at how close everybody is, how the amps are set up. Now think about the leakage that would have come through that with just the mics in that close proximity, now take away headphones and add all the blowback from monitors. I mean, it was basically like recording a live concert, but at least tracking it. You know what I mean? But you can hear it. Once I read that, as you're listening to the album, you can hear it. And I do like the fact that it said that both Young and Mazer acknowledged that this was a problem, but it worked and it sounded good, because I think it does too when you listen to it.
And I think maybe that's why I was kind of saying earlier that, to me, when I listen to After the Gold Rush, I don't think they recorded After the Gold Rush in this same manner, because that's why maybe that album sounds a little cleaner and maybe a little more studio driven, where this one does have more of that raw feeling, right? It does. But
I think that helps, especially with the way that they chose the songs, because I think like your Harvest and Heart of Gold, those sound really, really tight and pretty and like they were done in a Nashville studio, whereas opposed to like Words Between the Lines of Age in Alabama, you just have more of that grit, and it makes, so he chose the songs that made sense, I feel like, at least to record in that way.
They fit for sure. They definitely fit. And we'll get to this a little bit. I found it really interesting because The Needle and Damage Done is one of my favorite songs off the album. But that was taken just from a live show in UCLA.
Yeah,
but
I
was
think
like, wow.
With the instrumentation on that song being just him and the guitar, you can get away with that one.
Oh yeah, totally. But it's weird because it makes sense because after the track ends, you hear like the clapping and everything. So I get that, but I never really knew that. So I just find this album. To me, it's a really interesting album. Not only is it all over the place locations, but if you think about what they're drawing from, it's got the kind of folksy acoustic stuff. You got some symphonic stuff. Mm-hmm. Then you have some rock stuff. But then just one of the tracks is from like a live show. I mean, it's just such an interesting mix.
I think that's the only one on the album that has that solo guy and a guitar kind of feel. Because even though the other ones, some of the Nashville ones were obviously like a songwriter, like a songwriter's type of song, it's not just him and the guitar. It's definitely, there's a band there. I think that is kind of interesting and really cool, because it's all very characteristically Neil Young, but not necessarily characteristically similar in like the makeup of the songs and how they did them.
Sure, definitely.
One thing I do have to say though, the way it's an awkward transition, but I love it, is the way the clapping and the applause at the end of Needle and the Damage Done. It's just such an abrupt cut right into Words Between the Lines of Age. I like it. It
definitely is.
I do.
I
think, it's funny because the artwork is really very simple. It's just in a kind of country-ish sort of way.
Just looks kind of. It looks like a Harvest.
Yeah, and you got I guess it could be either the sun or like a depiction of the harvest moon, and then inside there's just this picture that is a reflection of Neil Young through a doorknob.
Well, that's very, very cool.
Could be the door into the barn.
It could be. You would almost hope it was.
Yeah, I would think so. But anyways, I just, it's funny because some albums have like these, there's these really big covers or there's a lot going on there. But this one is one of those ones that stood the test of time, and it's just so simple. Hell, it's simpler than Dark Side of the Moon, I would argue. And that's a very simple and bold. Thanks. Storm Thorgerson,
yeah.
God,
Storm.
That guy's shit is awesome.
It is badass. So I think we can actually get into this one, Rintin Tim.
Yeah, why not?
Yes. All right. Well, before we do, everybody, if you haven't liked and you haven't commented yet, please do. And once we're done going through our picks, let us know what song you guys would scratch, because that is very important. In fact, it's the most important part of the process. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah. It's a game.
So, it's a game. So, song number one, side number one. Start off with Out on a Weekend. has the steel pedal, and this is the one where James Taylor, I think they sings background on it, right? And
do they? I don't know. I think this is just. I think this one's just Neil Young.
Oh no, maybe that's Old Man.
Yeah, Old Man. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
This is pretty much just a pretty straight ahead harmonica, pedal steel, acoustic. I feel like just kind of a nice country rock song, and it seems to be about like a young guy living in a place where he doesn't know a lot of people, and he's just trying to like figure out what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, and I kind of almost took this because the reading that I've done about Neil Young and his earlier musical career, he really struggled as a musician, and he talks about a lonely boy trying to make it pay, and he was just trying to do that, and he tried to do the solo thing. He went to all these different bands, and I think a lot of it could also be taken from his journey a little bit, trying to, also going out on the weekend, just, trying to play weekend shows or, get a following, and,
just trying
and then
to
also
make
references, make his way. It also references a woman, who tried to help him through the situation. And, I think it's it is kind of a nice traditional, I guess you could say, folksy, gentle way to just sort of start the album, and it's definitely one of my favorite songs on the album for sure.
Now, speaking of a woman to help him through the situation, do you know who he's married to now?
Daryl Hannah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really trippy, man, and
really trippy.
Yeah.
So I got even another trippier story for you.
Okay.
A buddy of mine in San Francisco, he works at a bike shop called Mike's Bikes. And I don't know if he's still there or not, but Sam Salazar, he's actually from Detroit, or near Detroit as well. He worked at the bike shop, and he's a huge Neil Young fan. And one day, Neil Young and Daryl Hannah just walked in, and we're like,
"No way,
hey, Neil needs a bike." And so this is the way Sam told me the story. He's like, yeah, Neil needs a bike. And so he, of course, is basically pissing himself because this is like one of his, idols, and got him fitted for a bike and everything. And then, signed the whatever paper and receipt and stuff. And then, they had to get the bike like custom made and shipped there and everything. And then he goes, and I guess he called, like, Neil left his phone number, and he called him when it was in, and it was Neil Young who picked up. It's just like he was like, wow. Yeah, your bike's in. It's
when you pick it up, cool. Can I actually bring my LP of Harvest Arenas?
Yeah, just a quick signature. Like, actually, wow. I'll deliver it to you. Yeah. So anyways,
sure.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Well,
that's a cool
it's
story.
Interesting you bring up who he's married to, because I don't know if he was married to this woman, but a lot of the songs, and we'll get to this in the song "A Man Needs a Maid," but her name is Carrie Snodgrass. I believe her name is. She's an actress, and so Neil Young growing up had and still did. Like, he had almost polio, I guess, and it has really affected his back, and he has a lot of issues, and he'd have to rest his back and everything. And a man needs, we'll get to A Man Needs a Maid, but basically he had to rest a lot. And then and she's the one who really took care of him and took care of him at the ranch, apparently. So wow. I don't know if they were romantically involved or ever married. I didn't fully get that far in the book that I was reading, but
that's interesting.
But before we get to that, let's get to Harvest. Again, this was recorded at the Quadraphonic studios, and to me, again, it's in a certain way, it's similar to Out on the Weekend. It's kind of just a gentle, straightforward song. It just kind of trots along a little bit, It's I can't say anything overly. I feel like it's a great
opener.
It's a great opener. For his second song, you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking Harvest now. I thought we were still talking Out on the Weekend.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. The song Harvest. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I agree. That is definitely definitely the real, like, kind of Nashville clean sort of sound,
Yeah.
But anyways,
Anyways. It's just a good straightforward song. I can't really, to be honest, I can't say that, I don't know, anything wouldn't say there's anything that does it for me, but yeah, I mean, it's cool. And I don't know. I feel like we should just move into,
Man Needs a Maid.
Man Needs a Maid.
We kind of already talked about it.
We kind of already did, but yeah, essentially the song is about, I guess in this day and age, it could be taken a little differently, but it's basically about a man, really needing and depending on, his woman to take care of him and kind of nurse him back to health because there's literally things that he can't do.
Yeah,
And,
see, it's funny because when I heard it, I was just like, I basically thought he was just saying like, look, man, my shit isn't together. I can't keep it clean. Like he was just kind of like, I'm falling apart over here. I'm in the dark here, Charlie.
Yeah.
And
I'm in the dark. Yeah.
but that makes more sense, I think, and especially tying it to this Snodgrass.
Yes. Well, and this also includes, the symphony as well.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's definitely one of the symphony tracks. So that it stands out, and it's an interesting transition because you go from kind of two more
Yeah.
gentler, folksy acoustic songs. And I imagine if you're a fan, this kind of catches you off guard a little bit. Like if you, being like, oh, I love After the Gold Rush. You put this on, the first two songs are, kind of in that realm. And then all of a sudden this comes on, you must be like, totally thrown off.
But I feel like at least at its beginning, it kind of starts with Nietzsche on piano, and it's just a nice piano intro, and it just sounds like a piano-driven song. I mean, it doesn't bust right in with the orchestra, so it kind of just eases you in a little bit.
It just the tip. It definitely eases you in, but at the end, the orchestra's there.
It's full blown.
Boom. Yeah, it gets pretty epic for sure. So then going on to Heart of Gold, it is the first song off the album, one of my favorites as well.
Dude.
It has such a good feel. It moves really well. I think this might be, is this the first song he plays harmonica on, or does he play it? I'm trying to think.
No, he plays it out on the weekend too.
Oh, does he? Okay. All right. But yeah, it just, I don't know. It talks about, again, like I think his travels, he's searching. I guess part of me is like, he is searching for a heart of gold, but what is, you take that as love? Is his career? Is his music career? Like what? I don't know if there's,
I feel looking like at it's like trying to find like some sort of integrity, maybe
some purpose.
Like, yeah, sure. Maybe knowing the person you would imagine yourself and the road to getting there, if that makes sense.
Does make sense.
That's how I hear it. But I do. Yeah. I love the rhythm of the acoustic playing is just. I think really it like hooks you. The drum beats comes in. It's real simple, and the way the guitar goes against it, that rhythmically, I think is really. It really put the hook in me.
Really put the hook in you. Yeah. Well, and this is the one that one of the ones Ronstadt and James Taylor sing background vocals on it, and that's one thing that really stands out in this song too, dude. The background vocals are very prominent and very full. Like they.
And I feel like Ronstadt's voice is really you can really hear her because
hear it above.
she kind of has like that harmony in there, and her voice it like mixes beautifully, but it stands out to where if someone told you that was her, you would be like, oh, I hear that right away,
right away. Then we go, Are You Ready for the Country, to finish out side one. And to me, this is, I think it's just kind of a fun song. And
I do
like the intro. I don't know if I would say it's like a false start or a false take, but they're just kind of like playing around a little bit. The piano starts and just kind of has a fun little thing. And then boom, and then it hits and it goes. And I really like it.
But I think I really enjoy songs like that because you hear the realistic part of it. Like when you're in a band and everyone kind of is just goofing around and somebody starts and then you're all there. But it's just kind of how it is. People just kind of noodle a little bit. And then when it's time to go, you go.
It's time to go. Well, one thing that I love too is the Neil Young is known for we got a writer here. He's known for his writing a lot. Yeah. But I just, and this is, it's weird. If you look at the lyrics of this song, there's actually not that many words or that many lyrics to it, but he just says, like lefting and a writing, talked to the preacher and said God was on his side. Then I ran into the hangman and said, it's time to die. Like it's just fun, weird little things. That he comes up with. So
I don't know if that was sort of in reference to him kind of having that spot in the country, and kind of get, I know that when he was in the Buffalo Springfield, I believe they were one of those bands that lived like in this Laurel Canyon area. Okay. So if you haven't seen Echo in the Canyon, watch
which
that.
I haven't either. I know.
Dude,
I need to see that. Yeah,
really good.
So good.
But I believe they were one of the bands who lived there. But that's still right outside of L.A. And I just wonder if this is some sort of a thing of now he gets his place in the country, and it's more of a life that he wants instead of just being caught up in the hamster wheel of the city.
Well, yeah, because wasn't he like 24 years old or something when he wrote? I mean, he was really young, I think, when he wrote this album.
Well, and I think Old Man is about the guy he bought the property from, if I'm not mistaken.
Him. Well, there's this kind of one of the stories. Basically, the old man, his name's Louis Avila, and his wife Clara. They were actually the caretakers. They were the couple living on the land, and they were like the caretakers.
Oh,
of the land.
Okay.
So I'm not, again, I don't know how big this ranch is, and if when he bought it, they just kind of like came with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
I don't either.
How that works, but since we're talking about that, why don't we just flip the side to side two, and we'll go right into Old Man here, and so. So the song is, I guess, about what they call the foreman who lived and I guess came with his ranch.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I just like the idea of like, you think that you tend to think there's just so much of a difference in generation, but he's saying I'm like you.
Yeah, well,
24, and there's so much more.
So much more. Yeah. Well, part of the story is too. Neil Young he got into, I guess, this old man, there was like an old blue Jeep, they said, and he got into the Jeep and they drove up to to the side or to a lake. And the guy asked him, he was like, how does a young man like yourself have enough money to buy this place?
Yeah, I believe I've heard something like this before.
And he was like, well, I was just lucky, really, just lucky. And the old man was like, well, that's the darndest thing I ever heard. And he just like wrote a song for him about it. It's, but that's what's great about, I think, I mean, I guess, one could say that in a sense, country music does this as well, but a lot of folk music takes stories and real life occurrences. And not that, I mean, a lot of music does that. I shouldn't just pigeonhole it to there.
But there's
it's more
that
prevalent.
Seems to be a lot more of it.
Yeah. And where you can have just like an interaction with a person or a conversation, and
that's
artists like Neil Young will make a song of it, and that's really cool. But the song itself is awesome. Like, I love it. Great favorites. Great way to start side two. Like, very, very
and again,
awesome.
And I think you already brought up the background vocals, but
it
really
starts slow, and then but it starts slow kind of with the acoustic and stuff, but then it builds and it climaxes. It's pretty great, man. I dig it. Number 2, second song on the
There's
side.
There's a world
with
we're living in.
Again, the London Symphony Orchestra on this, and this
they don't ease into this one. It's like timpani hits right away, and
it is the most like epic sounding song, and the way he even sings it, it has a real dark undertone. I feel like I couldn't even necessarily say he sings it. He kind of speaks a lot of it during that part, but then it goes into this.
There's like that
almost
break.
like I call it like the gentle Disney part a little bit, where it has this.
I can see that.
I don't know. Is that like an actual harp?
Probably. I mean, you got a symphony orchestra.
Strings. Yeah, and there's other strings too.
Or it could be pizzicato violins. I'm not, but either way.
And it transitions back and forth a few times, so it's a little more of a formulaic song, going back and forth. But it does have that big kind of grand epic sound. And again, I could see maybe fans of Neil Young, his other work, not identifying or maybe liking. I don't know.
Because it is kind of an outlier.
It's a departure.
I mean, you could argue it's like an outlier, not only of the album, but like his career.
Yeah,
that's a career outlier. I mean, you got the scattergram of his career, and there's stuff all over, and then this one, dude. You know.
Yeah. It is not. It's not linear. No, not at all. No. So then moving on to Alabama. Ooh, you got a weight on your shoulders, don't you?
I like this because this brings up a rock and roll beef. That's another sound effect we need there.
Beef. No,
something like, it's not always going to be rock and roll, but something about like a beef feud or a beef. So that's coming. Hopefully it'll be done by the time this airs. But
we'll see.
Anyways, you got the rock and roll beef between him and Lynyrd Skynyrd, he wrote Southern Man just about, I think really just about racism and his take on just sort of that culture. Because I'm sure being Canadian, that's probably exceptionally weird to him, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that racism probably, it still exists today, unfortunately, but I'm sure it probably existed a lot more even then. And because you're not too far from like the 50s where there was actually segregation, if you can believe
literal,
that.
like drinking fountain here, drinking fountain here, bathroom here, bathroom there.
So you're not, and the thing is, I feel like it's very short-sighted and it seems very ill-informed for me to Lynyrd Skynyrd to take that as a shot. I mean, you can be from the South, but if you don't get what he's saying in that song and you're defending him and you're defending, slavery and burning crosses and the Klan and all that stuff, like you're going to jump in and defend that? Like, dude, honestly, fuck you at that point.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because the main line that stands out to me in this song is "See the old folks tied in white robes." I mean, that's pretty direct.
Well, it's funny because so he did Southern Man. As a response to that, they took a shot at him in Sweet Home Alabama, saying, "I hope Neil Young will remember a Southern man doesn't need him around anyhow." And then he wrote this song. But I read that later he kind of lamented it a little bit, saying that
he did. It wasn't as well thought out as I think he wanted it to be. Right? I mean, is that?
But I actually, I like this. This is one of my favorite songs on the album. Yeah, I think it's an awesome song.
Yeah, I think
and you
it's
got
great.
Crosby, Stills, Nash doing vocal or background vocals on it.
Yeah,
I think they did vocals on that one in words between the lines of age.
Well, the thing about it is, again, it's one of those songs that still translates to the world and social, political landscape that we live in today. Yeah. Except, dude, I wouldn't call this song Alabama. I just call it America. Because I'm not going to pigeonhole it to like one state. Like let's be real. So
sure.
Or in this week we could just call it Kenosha, right?
The Kenosha
Kickers. Wisconsin fans.
Oh, I should have worn my Kenosha.
I know, dude. Me too. Damn it. Well, we didn't know it was going to go that direction. But that's the great thing about the show. We can take it in so many directions.
Yeah, and we typically do.
Dude, each episode could just have its own spinoff.
And the thing is, I feel like we've been real choosy with always throwing in quotes from Wayne's World, but I doubled down and already got two in from Apocalypse Now this time.
Yeah, you did. So if you didn't catch those, rewatch, and if you can let us know what ones they are. we'll send you something whenever we have merchandise, a Dude and Grim t-shirt.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it could be, but something.
Dude,
That's
we
a
need
good goal for the future.
Dude, Dude and Grim rolling papers. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. All right.
Get them shits in embalming fluid.
Get 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So like you, dude, the song is like one of the harder, rockier, raw songs on the album. I totally dig it. It's pretty badass. Then we move on to move on to The Needle and the Damage Done. I think we talked about this a little earlier. This was actually taken from a live solo performance that he did at UCLA in January of 1971. It's one of my favorites, and really it just kind of speaks to all his, I mean, it's pretty direct too, all his fellow musicians who had kind of turned to heroin and he'd lost and it had really affected the people around him.
They reference specifically a guy in Crazy Horse.
Danny Whitten. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think it is really poignant to the times.
Definitely. And unfortunately, it's not just musicians, it's affected a lot of people. And even recently, though, there's a lot of actors and stuff. It seems like, you hear more about it when it's a famous person.
Sure. But I'm sure there's a lot of unsung folks that went down the same road. Now, when we get to another spin-off series, spoiler alert, I just thought of this one, Songs of the Same Theme. We're going to pair this one with Billy D by Chris Christopherson off the Silver Tongue Devil, because it's like the same story, but his is not as general. It's very specific. And you want to talk about some like horrifically awesome, beautiful storytelling, but painful. Dude,
good shit.
Billy took a beating from a war that he meant no harm. It's a good one.
Billy, get to the chopper.
So Songs of the Same Theme.
All right.
Coming soon.
Probably at this point, probably 2022, man.
That's okay. You got to have stuff to look forward to.
We got nothing but time.
Yeah. Not a whole hell of a lot going on.
So. No. So anyways, let's wrap the album up with Words, Between the Lines of Age. Another
really love this one.
Rock song, great.
And as we mentioned, the transition is weird, but it's so good.
And then it just comes down like I don't even know, like a meat cleaver or something.
Yeah.
It just, but that distorted guitar, it's also a really just full song. Like there's just, it just got a lot kind of going on in it. And I feel like this is one of the ones they recorded in the barn, No,
I think it is. And I can imagine, because you kind of alluded to it earlier, but they talked about that story when I think the guys from Crosby, Stills and Nash were at his ranch. And when they were listening to the playback of it, they actually put a monitor outside, I think, one, or it was either outside or in his house, and then one in the barn, and they played it. I can imagine how awesome that was, because I'm sure it was loud as shit, and you're just listening to it outside.
Dude, kind of like when we were in Florida listening to Animals.
And I was like, do you think the whole world can hear this right now?
It's crazy what mushrooms will do to you.
Dude.
Because it was just like...
That was some Dominion of Gozer shit right there.
Dude, it certainly was. But dude, you spoke about Neil Young's kind of solos and everything. And this song has a very... Like, he goes into a solo, but even he kind of builds up to it. There's like... I wouldn't say dead space, but there's stuff going, and it's almost like he's kind of like working it out, and it doesn't. You're like, what the hell? It's just kind of messy, and like, what is it? And then he kind of gets into it in his real cringy kind of pingy way, right? Yeah.
And dude, like I was referencing that song that he I think where his vocals were more prevalent than most with Why Do I Do This Every Time?
I don't know.
Dude, the band he was in, for Christ's sakes.
No,
Buffalo Springfield.
Okay.
That song, Mr. Soul, that has a Neil Young solo that is like, it's like the precursor to everything that was going to come. It's like,
Dude, it's such a classic sound, man.
It's
hilarious.
Dude, it's character. Whether you could talk about the playing or anything, but I mean, dude, it is a sound that is distinctly his.
Yes.
And I think the Flaming Lips were influenced by this. If you listen to their album Embryonic, dude, this solo on Powerless, I think Neil Young actually came in and played that one for him.
Are you serious?
No, but he could have, is my point. There's points where you hear him like plugging and unplugging the guitar, and I'm like, dude.
They're like, yeah, we're going to put this on the album. That's
yeah,
amazing.
that was one of the ones you're just like, I give up.
Yeah, it's over. I quit.
But anyways, I think that's all of them.
It's giving me a headache.
So, yes, dude, take two of these. So now we figured out that Neil Young actually is a guest on a Flaming Lips album, which is amazing. I can't wait to talk about that album when maybe we can even find footage of him in the studio with them.
Yes, that would be sweet. We will look really hard. Promise.
Yeah.
All right. Geez, in the theme of harvest, gosh, I feel like we should pull out like our sickle and scratch the album or something like that, right?
Yep.
Or like,
yeah, that would probably be good.
A backhoe, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So who's on deck? Who's on the tee?
I think I made you go first last time.
Okay.
So
Shit.
I'm going to go, and dude, the siren I could see the siren going off, but
because we know it's down to 2, bro.
Dude, I know.
Okay.
And I'm scratching There's a World.
We're going to
overtime. I'm so excited.
I am too. But
I think we know why it was scratched. I mean,
dude. Yeah. I mean, for me, and like you, it was between that and A Man Needs a Maid.
Absolutely.
And I liked I guess kind of the story behind A Man Needs a Maid. So that's, I think, why I left
well,
it
and
on
I
there.
felt like I like how it comes in with the piano. Like there's more of a tie-in to the rest of the work there.
Yeah, and when I listen to, here's the thing. All right, I think a lot of times when we do these, we have a tough time because we also pick albums that are just freaking great, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we look at is I look at the song before it and I look at the song after it. And man, I could definitely go from Old Man right into Alabama. I would have no problem with that, right? I mean,
neither would I, dude.
Yeah. So I think that's why. Dude, I have a feeling there might be some double overtime coming.
All right, well.
Because we both know, I already know. We both, A Man Needs a Maid. I already said it would be the next song I would scratch. I don't
double overtime. Okay. It's double OT, dude.
Dude, the Islanders and Capitals better watch out because we're coming for.
Yeah. How much time you got?
I don't know, dude.
Pretty soon, I'm just gonna take a knife to this.
Grim, if the Islanders and Capitals game was a scratch a track episode, there wouldn't be any songs left.
I know it.
Yeah, the Islanders would not win this series or the game.
Okay, so now we're in double OT, and what's your scratch for double OT?
Okay, well, it's definitely not Old Man, definitely not Alabama, definitely not Needle and Damage, so nothing off side 2. It's not Heart of Gold. It's not on. It's between Harvest and Are You Ready for the Country? I don't know. I'm gonna go with Harvest, the self-titled track.
Dude,
triple overtime? No.
It is. Hey, dude, I'm not gonna scratch Are You Ready for the Country?
Yeah, no, dude, because I like the lyrics. I do. So, dude, we can't go any farther. We just can't.
All right. Game over.
At this point, it's like scratch aside.
Well, yeah, and to be honest, we're not in the playoffs either. So, I mean, there are some regular season games that can end in a tie. So, this has been unprecedented, I think. Harvest is...
we could take it to a shootout.
Actually, if this were the playoffs, we would be taking this to a shootout. I don't even know if it. I think it would come to at this point. You'd be like, okay, you can only keep 3 songs. Which are your ones that you keep? It's a hell of an EP.
It is, yeah, hell of an EP. Okay, so. Well, this is we went deep in this one, deep guys.
Yeah.
So not just the tip, not
No,
So-
no, dude.
Wow. Well, we hope that you guys stuck with us, and after listening to this, let us know what song you guys would scratch, and feel free to disagree and tell us why you guys love the London Symphony Orchestra songs and why those are your favorite on the album, if they are. We would love to get a little, even I wouldn't say criticism, constructive criticism, but hey, This is a game. It's for debate. It's for fun. So pull the album out this weekend, listen to it with your friends, put it on, have some drinks, and scratch some stuff, but not for real. Don't really scratch it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hypothetically.
Because that would suck. Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. We got more albums
later.
coming your way.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by More. That's ... MORE and the Tims TIMNZ. Copyright 2020. The Dude and Grim Show.